How many of us have seen a problem and thought, I can fix that, and then we never do anything about it? Well, that is not the case with today's guests, Charisse and Vicky Pasches.
Vicky found shopping for clothes that matched her body and personal style a miserable experience. We can all probably relate. And Charisse said, let's fix it. So they did.
You may have seen them on Shark Tank, you may have read about them in the Out 100 list, or maybe you watched them on CBS Morning Show. But today you're listening to them on Queer Money, episode 534.
Charisse and Vicky are the creators and founders of the wildly popular all-gender clothing line for all body types, Dapper Boi. They're here to share their inspiration, how they overcame all their struggles, and what you can do with your next great idea. Now, on to the show.
Capital One Auto Navigator does more than just auto financing. We're here to help you find a car you love, too. Shop millions of cars from thousands of dealers nationwide. Research your favorite makes and models. Explore dealers near you and more. All on Auto Navigator.
So welcome Charisse and Vicky Pasches to the Queer Money Podcast. We're super excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. We're stoked too.
You said our last name perfectly.
Yeah, good job.
Like we said before, it reminds us of the dance club. So for those who know. So you are the founders and creators of Dapper Boi, which I saw somewhere. Sometimes you like to call it Dapper Boi.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so fun. I love just the way that Gayle King, we were on just recently on CBS Mornings, and Gayle King, like, it just was fun to be able to just like break the ice in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. A lot of fun. So can you, for those who don't know, can you let our listeners know what is the mission of Dapper Boi? And either of you can speak if you want to take it on your end.
Yeah, sure. So Dapper Boi is an all gender, size inclusive clothing brand. And our whole mission is to inspire folks to feel, confident in being their authentic selves through clothing. It really, this brand changed my life even, as a now leader, but like just be, open to being my authentic self. And it started with clothes. It's wild what clothes can do.
Yeah, absolutely. You just published a video recently where you're like standing between like the men's section and the women's section, and you're like, this stuff doesn't fit me. And I totally get that. I'm 5'4", and as I get older, I'm getting wider. And it's like all the jeans companies think that all men are like 5'6" or 6'1". Yeah.
Yes.
And it's just nothing fits.
Totally. When we had to do our Shark Tank, when we were going through that interview process of getting onto Shark Tank, we actually went into a mainstream store because I haven't had to do that in years, luckily, because we have the brand. But I was curious to see, is it still like that today? Mm-hmm. And so, you think about you walk into a department store and you literally have two options, and they're really embedded with these societal rules and norms based on your gender. And it's just so you don't think about it, you don't question it until you really don't fit in. And then maybe you might question it, but you might just think that's just how it is. But it really doesn't hurt. It doesn't help your confidence when you feel like you just don't belong, and so it's exciting. We said it on CBS Mornings. We're saying it every day. We truly believe that we will be the next Levi's of all gender fashion. It's exciting. And I feel more than ever, it's our time.
I love that. That's his favorite jeans brand.
Yeah.
Until now.
I haven't ordered or tried any of hers out. But what's interesting? I appreciate that, because I think even from when we're little kids and our mothers or fathers are taking us to the store, we are kind of conditioned that you have to fit into this, not this has to fit you. You have to fit into this, right? Mm-hmm. And especially with the body positivity movement and the fact that people are trying to feel more comfortable in their bodies. And we're basically giving pocket aces to the fashion industry or the advertising industry. It's much easier when we have other choices.
Definitely. Exactly. Yeah. And, once we started kind of going into the process, of starting this brand, and we didn't have any fashion background whatsoever, and we say this too, we were hung up on so many times by manufacturers because they're just like, do you know what you're talking about? and we didn't, but we knew that there was a big difference between men's and women's jeans. That was the product that we started with. So we took, a lot of notes on these things, like, why is it that women's jeans still have pockets that you can go knuckles deep in? At that time, men's jeans really didn't have a lot of stretch, 2015. It does now, that's changed in that way. But the fit, on curves was a problem for all people. We have, cis straight men coming to us that they came to us originally like a secret, hey, I know you're that lesbian brand, but like this, and I'm just like, listen, we're proud lesbians, but that's, we're for everybody, so we welcome people. And that's why we've gone through so many different variations. We started the brand calling ourselves androgynous jeans, and then it shifted to gender neutral, and then it was genderless. But now we feel like, how do we include all? Really, it's all gender. But I think also, you kind of just were talking about, what it is, like the stereotypes, what your parents put you in. And I think also for men in particular, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think maybe it's more like cis straight dudes that are like triggered by the words gender and not used to hearing size inclusive. And so it's like that market, and that's why they're coming to me secretly, So it's like, how do we open eyes here and minds? And really it's like showcasing diversity, in our models. So it's like relatable and all the things, but we're going down this road now, and it's exciting.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
today,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna be like also wearing some of our clothes too. It was cool on CBS. I was wearing our jeans, and even hearing Gayle King like, oh, those jeans aren't just for Vicky. Okay, well, I'm a size, and she gave her size. It was like, yeah, I mean, it really is cool for people to realize and see, yeah, these jeans really are for everyone.
You should give a free pair of jeans to Gail and one pair to Oprah and ask them to take a picture together.
On it.
Yes,
On it.
yes. Yeah, we have these. We've only launched 2 styles of jeans, and we're still a small brand, so we have slim and slim straight, but we are launching the super skinnies. They're on their way to us now, and those are the jeans that Charisse were wearing. So we can't totally sending them to Gail.
Very, very awesome.
Yeah, I know.
So that would be. I will say you brought the thing about cis men coming to you, at which that was one of the questions we were going to ask when you said all gender. Do you? And then we watched several of your videos. We're like, yes, obviously, it's for there are cis men, and I think over the last maybe 5 years, it seems like cis men have started to work on their legs. Right? You used to see these guys who were big on top and had chicken legs, right? And now they're working on their legs, and they've got gadunk, and which I appreciate.
The reason why we know this is I keep having to say, husband, look at me.
Anyway.
Yeah, you might actually enjoy the
bit
fit of Dapper Boi, because it does exactly, those thighs. And it can be, it's not just plus size. We have, men's 26, which is a very small size, to 52. It's a large size range. Can't find in a mainstream store. You have to go to different stores to accommodate that.
Yeah, I don't know. The last time I fit into a size 26, I was probably in 8th grade.
Me too.
So I want to dial back a little bit. Like, where did this idea come from? If I read correctly, you kind of the seed was planted during your honeymoon. How did that come up at such a romantic environment?
Yeah, so funny. Well, taking it even further back is we started our relationship as well. I had this idea for a business, and so we had started off working together, and then Vicky fell madly in love. I couldn't stop her. And then,
obviously
the lesbian thing and U-Hauled and all the things. So I think that we always started off with like a understanding of a business relationship, and we work so well in business. Like, we both have our individual strengths that really contribute to the overall business. And so when we first started dating, I love shopping. It's my favorite form of cardio. And so just like seeing Vicky kind of struggle to find her style when we were just dating, I thought that I could take clothes and go shopping for her, and I would be able to find something that would, miraculously fix her fashion dilemma. But when I came home, she tried it on. I could just see how crestfallen she was. Like I was not helping her confidence game. And so even like shopping for suits for our wedding, it was a really, really
Tough
long
process.
process.
Yeah.
Like, and I totally felt for her. So when she talked to me on our honeymoon, and I say this all the time, but most people conceive their first child on their honeymoon. And I really feel like Dapper Boi is our first baby.
Yeah. That was that conversation.
Yeah.
We were on a cruise ship on our honeymoon, and I'm like,
She's like,
I
I have
really-
an idea. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
that's a statement I say many times throughout our life. You know, it could end really good or bad. Who knows?
Yeah. And so when I said I was all in, I had no idea how crazy this journey was going to be, but it really, through all the ups and downs and the craziness, it totally has been worth it, because at the end of the day, we want to create a legacy and an impact in this world for our children and future generations, where like conversations like all gender clothing is so normalized. Like we are so excited to be part of revolutionizing fashion the way that it's seen.
That's awesome. So I guess now that you shared the background of where this came from, what made you actually, like, deep in your soul, what made you think you could actually do this? I mean, I think because a lot of us have ideas. I don't know, we could be billionaires right now if we got executed on half of the ideas that we've come up with, but we just don't ever actually do that. So what took you from, hey, we're doing this, we're thinking about this idea over champagne on our honeymoon, to let's actually execute on this because we think we can actually have an impact?
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One, N.A., member FDIC.
Yeah, it was hard to start, but really it came down to baby steps. And I think it was taking the baby steps. We didn't know it would continue actually becoming a reality. So for us, when I was like just curious on these jeans, and again, like that was the first product that I tried on in the men's section, where I felt so confident that I was confident enough to shop in the men's department. And then it was everything to me, even though I realized that those clothes really never fit. I was wearing, you know, 2 sizes too big to get around my butt. So I looked very frumpy, you know, but I still loved it. So when we started jeans and I started just Googling manufacturers, and that's really just not the way to do it. You have to know people in this industry, and getting hung up on, you know, it was not a reality yet at that point, until there was a manufacturer that said, I really think you guys are onto something. We like to help you and set you up with a pattern maker. And so we were just like going through the motions of the process, you know, and still not knowing completely that this was going to be a hit, until we got the right pair of jeans that, you know, after going through 6 months of sampling, that it just felt so good. And we had these, we literally had 2 pairs. That was it. It was my size and her size. And so we just found friends that could put on those jeans, and they were like obsessed, and also saying the same things. I never had a fit like this. And then we were just taking them around places. We started doing photo shoots. It started becoming a reality. And, you know, just the feedback from folks. And yes, I have the challenge too. You got to do something about it. That was like the, you know, ammo for us. You just keep on going and keep on going. And then we were like, well, how do we do this? We don't have any money, you know, to launch this brand. And so we found Kickstarter, and we saw other kind of, you know, there's lesbian owned brands as well, launching like suit companies. And Dapper Boi actually started with, to be honest, the idea phase started with suits, and we had a bow tie and a logo, because I was wearing suits every day. I was management in casinos, just totally different worlds and time frame in my life. But we changed it to jeans, you know, eventually, just because of that. And we launched on Kickstarter. We had to figure out, you know, that process and what that would look like to launch on Kickstarter. And I think what was so helpful to us is we found it was like Tim Ferriss was doing some blogs on Kickstarter, how to successfully launch a brand. And so what we did was we just contacted all friends and family, and we did this. It was like a flash mob post. And we said, hey, we are launching this company, you know, get on board. If you could all agree to putting out this post on this day at this time. And it was like just huge, just like hundreds of people putting it out all at one time. And again, for us, videos were everything. You know, videos is how we related to people. And so we were, just putting out the problem immediately. And I think it just resonated with folks. And, that first round, we raised 26,000. Our goal was 18,000. So we were like,
Nice.
we're doing
Yeah.
this, off to the races, with our very first production of Slim Straight jeans.
And even to take it further back, like considering like the context of the podcast, like it took a lot from I know it sounds like it was easy. We had this idea and we went on Kickstarter, but we had to have, even as a young married couple, we had to have that conversation at some point of Vicky's going to need to quit her job. And so I was working full time in order to really get this off of the ground, because it took a lot of work to get the business going. So Vicky had quit her job, and I was working full time. She was doing some things part time, but
Yep.
we were all in right from the beginning.
Well, you definitely were, because if I have the sequence of things correctly, not only were you trying to launch Dapper Boi and Vicky quit her job, but you were also, I think, pregnant or in labor, and you were still working to try to make this happen.
That was,
Tell me, like, where does the juice come from to be like, I'm gonna push out a baby while I'm gonna send this email to this, I don't know, this designer. Like, where does that come from? That takes a special fortitude, I think, and like, because we would love for more of our listeners and viewers to be able to tap into that in themselves.
Yeah, we had the babies. So we started the process of getting pregnant. It was 2017. We launched the brand in 2015. But what I will say was, when in the initial starting is, we are definitely those kind of risk taker, all in folks. We're plan A all the way kind of people. And we always say, if you focus a little bit on plan B, you're not like 100% on plan A.
Burn the boats, right?
Yep. And so we downsized. We were in a 4-bedroom townhouse, and we said, let's make this dream a reality here. We downsized to a 630 square foot little shack apartment to make this dream happen. Like, Charisse was working full time, but still working nights and weekends. We were just trying to get our face out there. Because of my marketing background too, it did help, because we had some contacts, in PR that were helping us. I mean, when we launched on Kickstarter, we were still on, we got on, what was that? Fox 5 in the morning, just getting on everything possible. This company's
Entrepreneur
doing something
magazine.
different.
Yeah.
Yes. So we were our own PR. We were just reaching out to writers, and just saying, hey, we're launching this company. This might resonate with your people, and just doing it all ourselves, but
So
it
we
took a lot of
started the
sacrifice.
journey of like, so we're running this brand. It's crazy. We're working all the time, and our friends all around us are getting pregnant. We're like, whoa, what's that journey like? So we took on another
well add
full-time
that on to
job of
this.
like, it's not, you don't have an oops baby when you're lesbians, right? So like, we went through the whole process of like trying to get pregnant. And for us, it took, I think we started like late 2016. It took 1.5 years of trying.
With IUIs and
with
IVF.
IUIs, and then I had like polyps and all the things that we had to take care of in order for me to have like the perfect setting in order to like harvest an embryo. So eventually what we ended up doing is going to upstate New York, and I was pregnant. I ended up getting pregnant with twins via IVF. So, but it was a journey. My first trimester, I was sicker than a dog and eating ravishingly through our house. And then after that, I was put on bed rest because it was a very high risk pregnancy. I was put on bed rest for 5 weeks, and then I was put on another set of bed rest, hospitalized bed rest. I was hospitalized. They monitored me 24/7. I was only allowed to get up for 5 minutes in order to take a shower. But that we're so thankful, like even through this journey of Dapper Boi, I say to Vicky all the time, like, wow, those were really trying times. But if you didn't have Dapper Boi, you wouldn't have been able to sit by my side and work on the computer. Like I was doing emails like from the hospital bed, and we were
And I would just
talking
go
about the
ship out
business.
orders in the daytime and come back to the hospital and, writing marketing emails and just doing all the things. It was like, and Charisse does this best, is just compartmentalizing every single day. If you're, we're always thinking about the big picture, but it's more so like, what tasks can we do each day to be, the
Forward
most
momentum.
impactful and forward momentum always.
Wow. As you guys are sharing your story, I'm thinking of I can't think of the name of her book, but the author is Jamie Kern Lima. She is the founder of a makeup company that she struggled for years to try to get launched to be more gender inclusive, to be more to customize to her skin tone, because she thought that makeup was mostly for like white women.
Well, she also had rosacea.
And she also had rosacea.
Yeah.
And she struggled for years to make it happen, years. And she talks about, being on her kitchen floor, taping boxes together to ship them out to customers. And eventually, despite all that, she was able to sell her company for over $1 billion to Estee Lauder. And that's kind of, as you're talking about your story, I'm thinking, you guys need to write a book, because this is kind of in parallel to her story. And I think it's super inspirational, especially to see the success that you're having now.
Yeah, thank you. It took a lot. We bootstrapped this brand from the beginning. And for those of you who don't know what bootstrapping means, it's just, using whatever personal resources we had. We had friends and family, luckily, that was just like our army at first. But once people got the product, they turned into our loyal customers. We have over 35,000 customers, a 51% repeat customer rate. So these people are coming back over and over again because they haven't found a fit like ours. But it took a lot. And, it's still that roller coaster ride, especially when it comes to fundraising and learning this world, that we didn't know. But I will say, proudly, that we know every single aspect of our brand, and we are so confident in what we're doing and in our product.
Yeah.
And it's not a race here. This is a marathon. And, there's those lows too. I mean, we sold our home in this process also, which was not easy. But again, we kind of go back to and why it's our why, and it's our customers. We're hearing these stories literally every day. We get messages from people that are just like, you're changing my life. Like, I was able to get a job because I walked in with so much swag and confidence now because I was in Dapper Boi clothes. We've also had the stories of, parents. We've had a mom, this is years ago now, but it was a mother that reached out to us to thank us for existing because their 14-year-old daughter was suicidal until she saw a Dapper Boi video ad. Like, this is the kind of impact that we have and why we do what we do. And yes, like, without capital, it's a hard business for sure. And that's why we sold our house, because of these stories, because it wasn't that we didn't have the sales. It was like COVID delays that hurt us badly, like so many other businesses. But we knew we just had to ride out this crazy wave here because the customers are here and they're waiting. They were waiting.
Is it that kind of feedback that during all the hurdles that have been presented to you, all the need to sell your home, the COVID crisis, is it that feedback that keeps you going?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's what we had to do when we were selling the house. I remember having the conversation so many times with Charisse, because during that time, this is 2022, we had equity in our home at that time. And so it didn't make sense. I mean, what were we going to go back to the casino industry? No, we had this viable, not only viable, it's like this thriving product and customer base waiting. It would be ridiculous for us to just, because of delays, to stop everything that we're doing.
I mean, we did this exercise, and we did this a lot at the former job that I did. And Vicky was reading a book. And so we did this exercise of like, what are our 5-year, 10-year goals, and we had all of these dreams, like, oh, we're going to be the next Levi's of all gender fashion. That's really where that big goal has come from. And then we started to reverse engineer it, and we said, what would a world look like without Dapper Boi in 10 years? And I think that was the gut punch, as Vicky was sharing, like, she shared a couple of stories from our customers, but like, as for myself, like as a mom, I always think about this brand, like, how is this going to impact my kids? How are moms out there going to feel? How are our customers going to feel if a brand like ours doesn't exist? Like, we bring confidence to them. If they no longer have an option for, Dapper Boi as their go-to brand, we wouldn't have anything. And at the same token, like, I feel like when we had made the hard decision to sell our home, it's like one of those like moments where like being a founder and being a mom intersect. And we were like, oh my gosh, am I making the right decision for my family? But it goes beyond like our 4 walls. It goes to like, how am I going to make an impact for the world, for our kids, like, so that we can normalize like all gender this should this shouldn't be like the archaic of like, there's the men's section and the women's section. We want our kids to grow up in a world where it's like, they have two moms, and that is something that is normalized, or there's all gender fashion. I mean, there's so many things, like so many ways that we can make impact in this world, and we feel like we're doing that. So by selling our home, we also wanted to show people that how can we ask other people to invest in us if we're not willing to invest in ourselves?
Oh, wow.
That is
That's powerful.
a great point. And I think that's something that a lot of people either don't hear that story and are aware of that. That's what some people, it takes for some
Right.
people to become successful. I
Yep.
think it's really important for us as queer folks to share those kinds of stories.
Yeah.
That sometimes taking a step back is what you need to do to get 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. And that's
Yeah.
that sounds like that's the case. But starting a brand like yours, and if you do end up wanting to be end up becoming the Levi of all genders,
Yep.
it's going to take more money, right? So let's talk a little bit about your fundraising.
Yeah.
John and I have interviewed Arlen Hamilton on the podcast twice, and both times she brought up the point that 93% of venture capital money goes to straight cis white men.
Yes.
Right. And that really, when you see that statistic or you hear that statistic as a queer person, as a woman, as a person of color, that just, yeah, you used the word gut punch earlier. It just hurts. It hurts your heart because you want to see that going to other people in your communities, but it also hurts you as an entrepreneur. So
Yep.
what has your journey been, or where are you at right now with trying to raise money?
Yeah, it's been tough. You know, when we first started the brand, we never had enough sales or, you know, the guarantee to get any kind of loans from banks. You know, it was the
Yeah.
traditional lending was really tough. And we were always kind of like too early to talk to investors. Although, you know, it's one lesson learned here that I'll pass on is like connecting early and often with folks, even if you're not ready to fundraise, is essential. Essential. Like we should have been connecting and just, you know, putting our faces in front of investors early on the game, because it's all about that authentic relationship and building that with investors. But regardless of that, you know, it was, we even did a crowdfunding equity campaign, you know, through Start Engine. So we had over 500 really customers and friends and family invest in Dapper Boi, raised over 284,000. That was between 2019 and 20. So there was that. And then, so now, you know, we've been on this path, and it's been a long ride here to try to raise $2 million, you know, to get us to the next level, to scale this business. And so, you know, in the beginning, not knowing this world, we were talking to the wrong investors, like tech folks, anybody with investor. Basically, I was like, oh, they're going to want to invest. But like, you know, learning this world, there's different kinds of investors that invest in different things. And, you know, and VC funds in particular have different like thesis that they go after, like certain things that they've, you know, promised their LPs or investors. And so learning this world has been challenging. But yeah, once we even started finding our people, I felt like, and you can see it on our Shark Tank episode, is people really niche us. You know, they see my short haircut and they're just like, well, I don't really see the potential. You guys are very niche, like stay in your community. You know, I'm just like,
yeah, stay in your lane.
right. Stay in
No,
your
come
lane
to
is
our
actually what they
community.
said. Right. And I'm like, is that what exactly do you mean, without saying, you know, like, it's just, these biases that go along with, you know, me being the person that's fundraising here with my sweet short fade. You know, but you know, but I mean, it's not even funny. It's been a ride. And I will say, you know, with all like the Shark Tank things and things like that, we've been trying to leverage that with investors. The morning that we filmed on Shark Tank is when we had, you know, $100 left to our name. And we're like, how do we do this? We were in the process of selling the house. It was a very scary, dire time. We had very little time to sell the home, and we did, thankfully. And at the same time, the morning of filming is when we got our lead investor for $250K, and her name's Kelly, Alternative Wealth Partners, and she's a lesbian who happened to know Dapper Boi for a long time, and it was one of the easiest pitches ever because she gets us, you know, and she's from our community. So it was about that authentic connection. But to your also point here, I think it's about we have to talk about this because it's true. Less than 2% is actually going to women-owned businesses, less than 1% to LGBTQ and BIPOC-owned businesses. That is messed up, but we're looking to make the change. During this process, also, we've been part of this film called Show Her the Money. And it really is about exactly what we're talking about here today, and how there needs to be also more women funders as well, to make these decisions, to put money in these underrepresented founders. And so this film has been an incredible process, and for us as leaders and connecting with investors. We didn't come from money, so it's been always like so intimidating for me to talk to investors. It's like, oh, you don't come off as like your authentic self here. So like by becoming friends with these investors, and learning their world, they're not so scary. They're fundraising here too. So that we're all on this mission together to move this needle here and really talking to the right folks.
Wow, I love that. I don't know if you ever saw the Oprah gave a fireside chat at Harvard University.
Stanford.
Stanford?
Yeah, I think it was Stanford.
Stanford, one of the smart schools. And somebody asked her about how do you feel like when you go to investors or you talk to corporations, being the only Black woman in the room. And she goes, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I sit at the head of the table and I'm in charge of all these white men in suits.
Yes.
Go. If she can do it, you can do it too.
Totally.
So-
What I didn't realize here is that less than 1.7% of women-owned businesses are hitting over $1 million in sales a year. And we were doing that. We were doing that.
Wow.
And so it was just like when we realized that stat, I'm like, what is going on here then? If we're producing these stats and it's just Charisse and I and 2 part-time employees doing this whole thing, my white cis male cousin who raises millions of dollars easily for his business on a napkin idea, like why are we getting the funding? What is going on? Especially when we're on Shark Tank, we're on CBS Mornings, like all the things, like they're seeing the potential, they're seeing that we're changing the game. What is it, with investors? So it's, again, I really feel like for us, because there's so many different ways to go here. And I think for founders, one of the first things you got to think about is what is the exit strategy? Is this going to be a family-owned business for life? Like it really depends. Like what kind of debt? Are you looking for debt? Are you looking for angel investment, venture capital, private equity? All are very different things. So for us, we were going after venture capital because we were looking for those huge dollars to scale. But really, in reality, I think in the phase that we're at, we're looking for angel investors because that is more of a one-on-one, and maybe they believe, it's just different in it's not just about numbers. It's about, the mission here. And so we've changed our tactics with going after angel investors right now.
Nice. I love that.
I have a question for you. That you talked about you were bringing in, or you had revenue of $1.7 million. And I think there are a lot of folks who don't know what that means, right? You say, I have a company and we bring in $1.7 million, and they're like, oh my God, you're so rich. You make so much money. They literally think a business that makes $1.7 million pays its owners $1.7 million.
I wish.
Right?
Yes.
So for the folks on here who heard that number, tell us what is behind that kind of revenue. What does it take? And I know I don't need you to tell specifically every single line item, but give us an idea of a company that's making $1.7 million as 2 part-time people with 2 kids. What does that work out for you?
Yeah, so the 1.7 is the number of women that are not hitting over 1 million. So we're doing about 1 million a year right now.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But still, that's a big number, and we get that all of the time. People think that we're just living large.
You're millionaires.
Exactly.
Where's your Bentley?
Right. Yes. And that's definitely not the case because, there's so many things we have to reinvest in, and inventory in our field is not cheap. So when we're trying, how we were bootstrapping is hitting only that 300 minimum. But when we're going above and beyond that, we have some big inventory needs here. So a lot of that goes to inventory. And then, I'm proud of that 51% repeat customer rate number, but how do we go above and beyond that? And there's a lot of costs that go into advertising. How do we reach these new customer channels or these personas we're trying to hit when we're going after more feminine women or plus size folks or the cis men, you know? And so that takes money. And so with advertising dollars and all of that, you know, that's a cost as well. And so we're always reinvesting back into the business. There are, I don't know how many pay periods that we haven't been able to take a paycheck still, because it really is about fueling, you know, our company growth and scaling to where we can consistently take a paycheck. That's the goal, you know, for us
Right.
personally. Like, we cannot wait to take a paycheck. You know, we're looking at other avenues, like where can we make other income, and what other areas of Dapper Boi can we, you know, make different revenue streams here? And that's important too, is to diversify your revenue streams. And there's some exciting things around on the horizon for Dapper Boi. But yes, to answer your question, no, we're not loaded. We're reinvesting into our business, you know, to prove ourselves further that we can scale this company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a fallacy that a lot of people, they just don't understand that. They don't understand, you know, they're sitting at a desk and they get paid $75,000 a year, and they're thinking that's all the money that the company spends on me is $75,000 a year.
Yep.
And they don't remember health insurance, all the HR stuff that goes into being an employee, the training, the fact that they're paying for your computer, they're paying for a desk, right? I think that the stat is that the average employee only gets about 70% of what a company spends on having them as an employee. That includes all of your benefits, including 401k and healthcare and all that stuff. On top of that, your company is paying another 30% just to have you there. So, and John and I definitely appreciate that. Last year was a tough year for us, and we didn't pay ourselves October through December.
Yeah.
But that's part of being a small business, right?
Right.
And
Right.
the hope is, or the goal is, you get to a point where you can pay yourself.
Right.
But bumps in the road mean sometimes that, you know, I think that always the saying is the owner gets paid last.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And if you have employees or contractors, or you have contracts with other companies, you have to pay those first in order to keep your company going.
Yeah, I think what was crucial for us, because we were, you know, went through some really hard times too, is just that honest communication with all of your partners. So like manufacturing partnerships, like how can you leverage, you know, being your authentic self, them really knowing you, and to getting to the point where even after all the crap that we went through, to negotiate some incredible payment terms. Like, how can you help yourself here? So if we're not fundraising or, you know, getting the money we need when we need it, you know, what else can we do? So you have to, like, you know, dive deep here, cut where you can, you know, just to ride it out. And for us, it was negotiating payment terms with manufacturers that have known us, you know, for a long time. That was really helpful during this time too.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, what did the Sharks get wrong?
Yeah, I think that they got wrong that we were niche and to stay in our lane, and that, you know, I think they thought that we were creating this third category, you know, and I think there's a lot of lessons learned on our end too, you know, when you're going up to these sharks and the intimidating process of production and all that, you know, so I would have answered questions maybe a little differently. Like, we're not trying to create a third category. We're not trying to be in the Pride section in Target during the month of June. You know, this is we're trying to change history here, you know, and believe that it should be based, you know, the shopping experience should be based on gender and style preference. And that's it, you know, body type, leaving gender out of the equation to be based on style preference and body type alone.
Right. I think that we're only seeing the opportunity in the right now. Like, they still see they're so binary. It was so binary in the thoughts of like, this is the men's section, this is the women's section. What? You want to create a third? No, it was like they just didn't understand the mission. And I was so proud of us for standing up there with 5 sharks. Literally, you walk down that hall and you have 5 sharks staring at you, and you're sharing this very vulnerable story, and they're telling you how you should run your business. And what I've always said is, when you're so exclusive, you're no longer inclusive. And like, that's not our brand, that's not our mission. And we stayed so steadfast on like where we see the vision of Dapper Boi. And it's okay that they didn't see it, because not every investor is going to be aligned with your mission, but we're always going to stand strong with what we believe in and where we see this business going.
And I think too, a really important part is we are having conversations with mainstream retail. Originally, we're like, no, we're just going to say direct to consumer. This is how we can grow and, reach new people, on Meta,
Yes.
Instagram, Facebook, things
Yes.
like that. But having these conversations with mainstream retail has been really interesting. They asked us, okay, we're not really ready for you, but where would you go in a store? You paint the picture for us. And
Oh.
my solution really is, I think that it's got to be baby steps. Because if we create this third category, the world is not ready for that. That automatically
Right.
creates, the outsider folks, and then the
They've gone
mainstream
woke.
see that as like,
Yeah.
yeah. Mainstream retail will see that as, or the consumers might be scared of it. So how do you do this in baby steps? And it is, I think, having us in both sections to start and showcasing what their typical, models may look like in our clothes. And then once they try it on, though, they're going to love it and want it in every color. And then they're going to go down the research rabbit hole like you do when you find your thing. And they'll be like, oh, it's all gender. Okay. Like this isn't so scary. And it opens up minds. And like, that's where we start seeing change. So we're working towards that, right now. And we have a, exciting partnership that's really, really exciting. We can't wait to announce in the next month or so here. That's gonna be
Nice.
Cool.
so exciting.
Yeah, I think you're riding the wave of the zeitgeist because David and I are super fans of Project Runway, and as the years have gone on, they've been more I don't know if I'm using the right word, but more genderless sort of clothing that they've been presenting. And when you watch the professional runways, you kind of see that direction going. And with us as a community, as a society, talking more about non-binary, gender fluid, transgender folks, it just seems like there is a market for this. And I think you're just riding the beginning of that wave. And maybe any of the struggles that you've had has really just been because you've been sort of ahead of the curve.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. We feel the same. We really do. It wasn't the right time for us, even if we got investors 5 years ago. It wasn't the right time. I'm glad that didn't happen. There's been so many lessons learned.
Yeah, let's dive into that for real quick before we wrap things up. David and I have said so many times, thank God we didn't get that partnership or that thing didn't work out when we thought we wanted it. Because in hindsight, we weren't ready for it. Can you dive into that a little bit about that not necessarily getting the investors at the times you might have wanted them desperately?
Definitely. And we've even had to turn down investors, at our most desperate of times because it wasn't aligned. And I think there's just so many lessons learned in those really hard times that we now are like, oh my God, like we saw out,
Right.
to the other side of that. And there were so many lessons learned. And I think that we're just more confident, business owners here that are very clear with our mission. And maybe we weren't so clear 5 years ago. Maybe we would have blown through investor money because maybe we wouldn't have been confident enough to listen to ourselves, at that time when investors were telling us that we're not on board with us. So if we took that money and just like, oh, okay, we'll just listen to whatever you have to say here,
Right.
we would have been in a completely different position. So in this, in the darkest times here, we found a light, and just a lot of knowledge and confidence in ourselves as leaders, not only in our clothing.
Yeah. Entering a
Yeah.
partnership with an investor can be even scarier. I mean, it's like almost like a marriage because you are tied to them with the business. They have ownership in it. So you want to make sure that whoever you sign on with is aligned in your values.
Right. And I was just gonna say that when you bring on an investor, all of a sudden you get a flood of their ideas, their missions, their drives, their goals, and you do have to check yourself and say, is this what I really want? And I think a lot of people forget that. They think that an investment is somebody writing you a check and they're just a silent partner, but more often than not, that's not the case. They're a very vocal partner because they want a return on their investment.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, we really feel out these relationships now. In the film, it talks about how it's just so easy with men in particular out on the golf course and they're making these deals here. But with us, as women-owned businesses here, and what I've realized in connecting with women funders has been, it's also about that relationship. We're not on a golf course here, but for us, it was like karaoke. Like how real can you get with these folks? And just like. Now us as like people and where we're taking this and taking us seriously also on this mission here. And it's really about like, it's just feeling out and going with intuition with these relationships and really being on the same page with the mission. It's everything.
Nice.
That's awesome. We need to figure out what is the golf course version of
Yeah.
queer and women and BIPOC owned businesses. Where do we go to have our conversations
Karaoke's fun.
and become successful?
Karaoke is fun.
My only problem with
I'm not
karaoke is
going
I have
to a
to,
karaoke. I'm not singing.
I have to have like 3 drinks before I go up and do karaoke.
Yeah,
though,
that's-
so that's not
Exactly.
necessarily good for business.
Right. Yeah. There's a fine line.
Oops, I didn't mean to say that out loud.
No, I think
So-
LinkedIn has been helpful in like just connecting. We go to a lot of conferences, and that's not necessarily, I mean, it's good because you get the initial something, but it's not, you don't have time to be authentic because everyone's trying to shoot their shot with investors, and lining
Yeah.
up. But I would say just, continually checking in, rooting for people. It's not just about you. Sometimes these relationships could take years, just as their face, show up for them too, and then building that connection, then meeting up, maybe coffee, things like that.
Nice. Yeah, I like coffee. It's safe.
It's
So one of the questions we've been asking a lot of our guests lately is because of some of the anxiety that folks are feeling these days. Your story has been very inspirational and inspiring. What has you feeling positive these days? Anything personal or professional, whatever you care to share.
Our kids are in a really fun stage right now. They're 6 now, our twin girls. And I just love to see how they think about life because they're very vocal these days, and it's just like so fun and something that we do as a family often. And we've done it for years actually, but I feel like there's just a new understanding with them right now. And I just love it. It's something called a dream drive. And so when we sold our house, it was not an easy time, but there is a certain neighborhood here in San Diego that we are just obsessed with. And we go and do this dream drive multiple times a month. And we, manifest, this future someday. And I would say that is so helpful. Even when we're in like some hard times, we're like, hey, dream drive, let's go, get on the road.
Nice.
And we think about every aspect of our day and what it looks like in this future home. And what does it feel like in this future home? What do you feel like? And the girls are now like responding too with how they see it. And I love that. And I love that for our family.
Yeah.
I love that.
So like being intentional about what you bring in, like, well, first off, it was a dream to bring our girls to CBS Mornings because we want to show them how we are trying to make impact in this world. We brought them with us on set, and they're offering Cheerios to Gail King, like not even knowing that they're like
Who they're talking
She is.
Dude, that's so cool. We want to normalize where they see their moms really trying to be badasses out there and change their narrative for female founders. And then the other thing is, we try to be intentional about the content that we take in. Like this, in a few days, we're going to be going on our employee retreat, which means me and Vicky. We're going to take some time to read a book called 10X is Easier Than 2X. Yeah, like we're really being intentional about like what books we're reading, what podcasts we're listening to, like how can we really like infiltrate our thought process with like how to be better every day, how we show up for our kids, how we show up for the business, how we show up as wives. Like we start every single day. What's our plan with the business? What's the plan with the family? Like we're so intentional in everything that we do because it is just the two of us. So we have to be as effective as possible.
I love that. I think a lot of us forget that what you put in your head is what comes out of you eventually, right? And our community gets so sucked into politics and pop culture and partying and sex that's we fill our brains with. But we need to, especially as business owners and leaders, if we want to be leaders, we also have to fill our brain with those other things. So I appreciate you saying that. And I will suggest to all of our listeners that they try to do that too.
Yeah, thank you. I think also something we've done recently, it really helps. And even it applies to every part of this journey, whether how far you are, or if you're just starting here. It's like sometimes it can be overwhelming, this big picture. And it's like just dialing it down to baby steps again. On Sundays, we just started this thing where we do a brain dump. I'm a overthinker in a lot of areas. And if it's not lined up perfectly, I'm like not making moves. And so Charisse is really great. We're a great team because she's just like, boom, let's do this. This is what we're doing. Let's go. And so we do this brain dump where we don't have to compartmentalize anything. It's just all the things that we need to do. And then on Monday mornings, typically we're like, okay, what are these tasks that we can get done each day, and literally just schedule it in our calendars. And we're so much more productive now because it can be very overwhelming. It's just little steps and how much you're just getting done, because it can be a lot with us.
We have a very similar process. And there are points that when I tell Dave, because Dave is an ideator, and I have to tell him, no more ideas today until you're done doing the 3 things you were assigned.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Your story is super inspirational, and we wish all the best of luck to you. And hopefully someday you'll be on the New York Stock Exchange or bought by Nordstrom or whomever. I don't know. Where can our listeners in the meantime watchers find you on social media and the interwebs?
Yeah, so our personal journey, we recently started an Instagram channel, Meet the Pasches. And so we're going to show a lot of behind the scenes in our family and how we're doing this whole thing. Yep, and products, sneak peeks, things like that. And then also, our Instagram, Dapper Boi, DAPPERBOI. TikTok, it's Dapper Boi Squad. And of course, our website, dapperboi.com. But thank you so
definitely
much.
Check that out on Instagram, folks. Some of your videos are so fun right now. You've got so much dancing going on, and
yes.
It's pretty cool. So congratulations, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been a blast.
The mission of Queer Money is to financially empower the LGBTQ plus community. Join us in thanking Capital One for supporting that mission. Thank you, Charisse and Vicky, for an inspiring and informative episode. Best of luck to both of you with Dapper Boi. To our listeners and viewers, thank you for joining us for another episode. Get your Queer Money takeaway and resources mentioned in this episode from this week's newsletter.
Then join us this Thursday for another Queer Money bonus episode, the International Edition, and next Tuesday when we're rejoined by Executive Director of Reaching Out MBA, Aidan Curry. Thank you and have a great week.